The Beef and Barnzy Show, brought to you by Bowlersmart.com, trusted by bowlers around the world since 2004. By Lightning Strikes Bowl, home of Bowlers Mart Pro Shop. By Platinum Ford, drive the difference. By Fire Lake Bowling Center, 24 state-of-the-art lanes. By True Grit Coatings, drive on our passion. By Road to Grip, king of them all. By 900 Global, striking worldwide.
Good morning and welcome back to the Beef and Barnzy Show. Both of us here today, which makes for less dead air time, that's for sure. And we will talk about all the happenings and address our new topic about polish.
Yeah, I don't know. I shot 800 last night with the new Ion Max Pro Max, whatever we'll call it this week. The new Ion Max. I decided to drill one with a slightly taller pin, put some polish on it, see if I could make it a little quicker down the lane. It did. Yeah, it just changed the reaction up just a little bit. And yeah, I think that the last two releases for me have both looked better with a little bit of polish on them. That was the Sublime Focus. Now this Ion Max. I'm specifically talking about being able to use them in league. Maybe some local tournaments. I think on the PBA for us, there's always a lot of oil down the lane. Polish tends to be a little difficult. I think is the best way to put it. I think it's a little difficult to use polish in that time.
Yeah. We're not bowling league at the same place as you used an Ion Max. I was at league with a Tropical Surge Purple Navy with smooth edge.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Morning, gentlemen. I use the term loosely. Fair enough. Used it at all?
I've been messing around. I don't technically use polish. I'm using compound. But the thing is if I wrote compound in the title, people wouldn't click on it. So, but yes, I've been using some smooth edge, and I've been using some. I still use step 2. I've still got a significant amount of step 2 left, so I haven't really gone away from it as much, but I've kind of messed around. For me, I tended to kind of do it a bit by eye and kind of what I wanted to see. So if I want to see it a little shinier, I add a little water. So for me, the smooth edge and the step 2, I haven't really noticed like a huge difference between the two, to be honest, because I'm not really locked in, should I say, on using like that step 2 in exactly that way. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like sometimes you add a bit of water, you sort of look and go, I want it a bit shinier than that,
and add a little more.
Yeah.
Where would you say smooth edge, rough edge, step 2, and react to shine? How would you put those in order?
I think that smooth edge is a little shinier than step 2, and I think that step 2, they basically used to have 3 steps and it became 2. So I think that step 2 somewhat sits on the edge of both rough edge and smooth edge. If that sort of makes sense. Because the gap between 1 and 2 is rough edge, and the gap between 2 and 3 is smooth edge.
Okay.
It's kind of how it
and then react to shine obviously is not that's just pure polish.
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest difference for me when using those types of products is what you how you prepare the ball underneath.
Which leads us right into this. Do you skip sand with pads?
Usually, if I'm doing a ball that I've used, I would hit it with maybe an old 500 pad or 1,000, like because I want it fairly rough underneath. But no, like so. For example, this new ball that I just because I drilled it brand new, I actually polished it before I drilled it. Because pro tip, if you're gonna polish a ball and you know you're gonna polish it before you put holes in it. It makes it so much easier, like mind-blowingly easier. Like, yeah, it is. It's very easy to make it the same because, of course, you're not bouncing on the holes and stuff, and you don't have to worry about getting polish all over the grips and everything else. So, I just did it straight on top of the box finish for the Iron Max. But if I'd have taken the Iron Max I've been using, I'd have probably hit it with a 500, like an older 500 pad, and then polished it with that step 2 or the smooth edge.
Yeah, except for really low end balls, there's still at least 2,000 and probably 1,000 before putting polish over the top, and that's kind of the standard issue from factory, which has been pretty successful for I don't know 15 years or so. So,
Stephen asked a question that is one of the more asked questions, I would say.
yeah,
Especially in the last few years. I'm converting from 15 to 14 due to injury. I've purchased the Iron Max and the Optimum Idle. Which other balls would you recommend? 14 miles an hour, 300 revs. So, for me, if I had both of those balls already, I would be looking for the more angular balls. DNA coil, I think is a pretty good option in the 14. I think it's a pretty good option in all weights, to be honest. But my wife probably has a little less speed and a little less revs than you're talking about there, and that's one of her favorites. So I think that's a good bridge ball from the strong balls to the more angular balls. And then off of that, I think that a virtual energy blackout is another one that we quite like the look of. As a more angular piece. Chris might be able to talk more about symmetrical balls that you kind of like.
yeah. Actually, I mean, Linda, she likes the Ion Pro as a ball. Down below that too. If you're on the softer end of the speed range, 14 miles an hour, I assume you mean with the monitor, which probably makes it a little bit speed dominant. At that point, you can use some balls that are a little bit stronger. There's a ball coming out next week that I think we're pretty high on. That it does come with some polish, but it's a pretty strong ball.
It's been announced.
Huh?
It's not coming out next week.
Oh, it's announced next week. That's right. We're still 3.5 weeks away. So almost 4. So
Yeah. But
I was trying to think Linda's Arsenal in there, and she's never,
I think that I think the Ion Pro is a little better for people who are a little more around it. I think Linda's got a little more axis rotation than Tina. A little higher rev rate. Tina currently actively hates the Ion Pro for her. it's not one of her favorites at all. It's kind of like I thought that it had a chance to bridge between like the hustles that she likes and like DNA coil and stuff, and it just kind of doesn't really fit either gap for her.
Now, as a strong hustle, because they've been really popular in the 14, is that too much of a gap between? I mean,
probably, but I mean, it's definitely something to consider as your angular piece. I mean, for me, I tend to like want to sort of build down a little bit, I think that it's very easy to like buy all of the things. But I think that if you can get like maybe 4 balls, and then I think that you kind of let your eyes guide you on where you have the gaps, because that's the thing that's good about building an arsenal. Like your skill set combined with the balls will show you where your gaps are. So like Chris has his formula for how he does it with the the strong and then like kind of smooth and angular, medium, smooth and angular. That's kind of just a guideline. It can be that like if you're in a position where like 75% of the time you use like this quadrant, then you're probably better having an extra ball in that quadrant than you are having one all the way down here that you basically just carry around to balance the bags.
Yeah, you skew up or down. 2-handers that are soft speed don't have a lot of ion maxes in their bag. They don't have a lot of heavy anything in their bag. An idle pearl might be the strongest ball they own as a smoother shiny piece. And then everything from there goes down to low flares and things like that. Yeah, so I think you're spot on there. But it looks like you skew more towards the high end DNA coil. Is probably that's something with some polish on it that's still a pretty strong core. It would give you a nice balance off of what you have there.
That'd be one that we'd look at. And then if you find that you're bowling and you're seeing the ball not really hooking as much as you want, but like the ion max isn't hooking either, then you're probably in that position where the ball's burning up a little bit and you need to consider something a little weaker. But all right, well, good luck. Hopefully the injury isn't too debilitating for you bowling overall, but I don't think you'll notice a massive difference in like hits or anything else moving down.
Yeah. Chris Martin, frequent contributor. How much difference is there between the harsh reality and idle pearl? And one listener says idle pearl is earlier and smoother for him than the harsh. That's not quite how I see it, but no, not earlier. I do see the smoother part.
But it's definitely not earlier.
Yeah, the idle pearl, I think, is like what we did for Linda's is we actually drilled one down as a shiny ball that can blend out a little bit of the wet dry, similar to what we did with Axiom pearl back before, something a bit clear but still kind of.
Was that the idle pearl you were saying?
The idle pearl, yeah, and the Axiom pearl is what we did 3-4 years ago. Is a pretty good shiny league type ball to blend out in games 2 and 3 especially. And the first night she used it that way, she had the front 8 doing it, so it looked pretty good. It's
kind of interesting how differently Tina and Linda see some of the balls and how differently you see them to I do. Do you find it like a healthy conversation, kind of just seeing the other side of it? Because like for me, idle pearl isn't really a ball that my eye doesn't really suit my eye very much. But there again, Axiom pearl didn't either, to be honest.
For me, it is more of it's not one I'm going to go way around it.
Yeah.
I took it to Korea and it was 11-1, and off of the idle max, the idle pearl was the ball I used, which in theory was 2 or 3 steps down in the balls I brought, but it was the next smoothest. It was the next smoothest option from the mid lane on, and so it blended it out, better.
Thanks for the stars, Michael. He says, I love polish for League. I have a Journey and a DNA coil, both 4,000 polish. The coil is much more ball. Yeah, I can see that. But I can get it down the lane much easier. My Journey seems to really want to dig in early, so one gets wheeled a bit more. Not sure what you mean by that. Is that due to balls specific, or is it the polish somehow manipulating them differently, operator error? Operator error can always be involved, but on the channel, we have a very hard and steadfast rule that if you can still blame the ball, then that's probably the best way to go. You paid $250 for the thing, so if you want to blame it, you go right ahead.
In general, I think we've seen. I think you're seeing it right.
The cover stock on that Journey is very strong.
It is strong, and if there's some friction in the front, it will certainly seem like it's way earlier than the coil.
Like for me, the Journey core is like, it's not weak, but it's not like super strong. Whereas the coil core is very strong. Whereas the coil cover is a little milder, and the Journey cover is very strong. So depending on what you're playing on, it can kind of trick you a little bit. So yeah, I don't think what you're seeing from what, like I say, what Chris is saying is totally totally off base. I think that the Journey was quite early for a shiny ball. It was a smoother Zen in a lot of ways. The Zen, when it came out, you know, pre like the softer hardnesses, the 72s and stuff. And I think that it did make somewhat of a difference when they moved up a little bit. That ball was very special. And I think that the Journey was kind of one that was a little earlier and a little smoother. So it didn't like, I don't think it fit everybody's eye, but I did see quite a few people have, like, there was quite a few high scores with that ball, because I think that once you get it lined up, you could strike a lot with it. I had a couple of really big sets with it also. It just wasn't a ball that was in play all of the time. And like I say, that's great until you get sick of dragging it around. But yeah, we don't think you're too far off base with that. So
yeah, for sure. All right.
I don't know how Hoskins breaks down his chart for shape, so I couldn't say.
Yeah, I have to go back and look at it specifically. He sees things a little bit differently than I do, and obviously, this goes back into skill set where Stu and I see some balls differently, because he's so much better at getting it down the lane first and creating a lot of shape down lane. I'm a little better at making it read early, and so some balls that's where we get the differences between which balls sometimes we really like versus don't like.
Yeah. And, Chris is much better at not leaving the 2-pin than I am.
And Stu's much better at not leaving the flat 10 than I am.
That's probably fair.
There's trade-offs to every strategy.
This is one of those 100% deals where, like, beauty's in the eye of the beholder, and in pro bowling, it's in the eyes of whatever the other guy is doing. Amazing. We talk about this all the time. You can stand in the locker room and you can listen to every guy who goes up the back of it who says, everybody who gets around it's doing really well. And we'll go, Sherman and Chris Barnes are at the top. What the fuck are you talking about? Yeah. And then the next guy who goes, you know, who's up the back of it goes, it's always the opposite. Like, you could always find somebody who's bowled well doing the opposite of what you do.
Yeah, we tend to think it's all about rev rate, and you go, well, Bill O'Neill's high, but he's not that high. And then, well, Frankie did, make the show again. Like, well, okay.
Yeah. It's it's pretty wild how you can convince yourself that there's, like, there's 1 minute like no tilt is great. The next minute, everybody's like, oh, you've got to tilt it. And it's just like,
yeah, negative tilt, that's the magic.
Yeah, and a couple of times. Yeah, I mean,
or guys that roll it, or that, yeah.
I mean, I've heard a lot of people talk about being able to move their tilt. I've never really ever seen anybody
do it really well consistently. Yeah. And this is something we have talked about too, is once you change your tilt, you don't change your tilt without changing your rotation. So it
Certainly
becomes
not
a
very
bit of
often.
a chicken or egg.
Yes.
You change your rotation by 30 degrees to change your tilt by 7 degrees.
Touche.
Oh, my guy. There we go.
Polish is my enemy in league. Too fast off the spot, and 9-pin or 7-9 way too much.
Speaking
I
of a
think
guy
that
with
depends.
rotation.
That
Yeah.
I'm talking about taking balls that are really strong and polishing them. I'm not necessarily talking about taking the shiny balls. So, like, this all started last night. I used the Ion Max, and I used it all night, and I actually screwed it up because I had 259, 269. I had 279 running, and I got 6 on the fill. So I was bowled 275. So I could have had 59, 69, 79. But
ironically, Ryan also put polish on an IM Max last night and used it at Louisville. And 260, 268, 267 to start, I think. And so
I'm sure I managed to move my feet less than he did because I think I moved about 3 the whole night, and I started off pretty far right. I wasn't hugging it very much.
Well, he had Chapman on his pair and 2 or 3 two-handers on the other team. So I am quite certain you're correct.
To quote Sean Ryan, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, the two-handers were getting 60 pins and 45 pins. So you can imagine a little bit rev dominant and a little bit everywhere. Yes, catch up on some stuff. But yeah, Chuck's a good bowler. So yeah, for sure, like smooth with no polish kind of thing. But that is, if you can, every once in a while, they're really good strong ball that has a long continuation window, which was the reality before this. And then the gems in those, not quite as much.
Yeah.
A little sharper. But this IM Max seems to have that long window again. And so you can shine it up, have it in the middle, have it dull, and it still has a pretty big window. And you can tailor it to how much hook you have where you bowl. Oh, I got behind on the comments. Sorry. Kenny Seymour in the chat. Mike Nelly, good to see you this weekend as well. Somebody's asking about, too many ball releases these days. What's your thoughts? I think sales dictates.
Yeah. I think that the customer trends kind of dictate that. So if customers want to buy more balls, then the ball manufacturers are going to oblige. I don't think that. I think there's this thought that like the ball manufacturers are dumb or something. It's like they keep the lights on by making the decisions based on what customers do. Yeah. So like they ain't discontinuing a ball because it pisses off, Billy from North Dakota, because that's his favorite ball. Like they're discontinuing it because people aren't buying it.
Or Crispin Denton.
Like if Storm could sell the same 5 balls for the next 5 years and make all the numbers they're making now, then of course they would do that because they'd have way less costs because they wouldn't have any R&D or anything.
Yeah.
Like they wouldn't.
And that's why Phase 2 and High Roads and IQ Tour stayed in the line for as long as they did, because sales.
Because people were buying them. Like, so, like, it and the thing is America is a really big place, and realistically, American sales are the main thing, right? There's a lot of sales in other parts of the world, but the American is almost like the league bowling of a bowling center. Like that's what keeps, traditionally keeps the lights on. Like that's where like it's happening. And you can be in one part of America and like nobody throws IQ tour. Like where I am, very rarely do I see an IQ tour.
Mhm.
But like me and Chris would go around, especially when we used to travel around doing like demos and stuff. And then you'd go in one bowling center. Everybody had an IQ tour.
Yeah.
Like, and it's just, it depends what you use. I mean, I bowl in the same city, and I can tell you that I'm almost certainly not going to use the Ion Max tonight. I'm probably going to use the Sublime Focus because that's been really good the last 2 weeks.
Uh-huh.
But the Sublime Focus isn't very good at Highland for me because it's much better being a little bit straighter up the lane at Highland. And the Sublime Focus is much better for me when I can separate it a little bit more and like use a little slower speed and stuff. So if you multiply that out over like 1 million bowlers, give or take, in like, 50 states in America, well, then you're going to see a huge variety of balls that are like being used. Like, there are some places you go where people like the entire bowling center basically uses Brunswick balls and there isn't any stone balls. And then you go to another city, like in California, like when we used to go out there, nobody was throwing Brunswick balls almost. They were all throwing stone balls.
Yeah.
But you'd go different parts of town, you're just different parts of the country, and you're like, oh my God, there's like loads of mounted balls here.
Yeah. You go to Michigan and you go up there now where they're made and you see tons of, for a while, Global really wasn't anywhere. But if you went down to South Texas, it was everywhere.
Yeah. So
And, yeah.
it just like over the country, you're going to see a lot of different options. So like that's the thing. At the minute, I guess maybe there's the market has shifted and there's less people buying balls, but the people who are buying balls are buying more balls. So that's how the market's changed. I mean, I don't know. I don't look at the sales numbers. That's not my job.
Yeah.
My job's to throw the balls. So, but I think that anybody who thinks that they don't know what they're doing, well, then that's also very strange.
Yeah. For sure. This year on House Shot's been feeling the clip a lot more in different houses. I might start entertaining a tropical surge to trap on the headpin. That's one of the strategies, and certainly a Dombrowski approved strategy, but it's a high RG, lower flare thing. And so when it sees friction, it's going to hook quite a bit. But being straighter off of it, it gives you a chance. Seeing some success with that idle pearl like that, and then now we're seeing some of the shiny Ion Maxes, depending on where you're at speed wise and that. So had an idea a while back, but would you guys see a benefit of asymmetrical lower end ball like a Hustle? It's not a lower end ball, but Ion Max is kind of in that range.
You mean Ion Pro?
Sorry. Sheesh. Yeah, Ion Pro.
I mean,
is in that range.
The problem becomes
was Dynamics as well. Tour Dynamics.
Yeah, I think the problem becomes if you end up with a core that's real, like kind of strong, it just ends up having an argument with the cover stock rather than complementing it. So it just becomes a little bit challenging, shall we say, because the main goal of when they're developing a ball is to A, fill a gap in people's bags that they don't have, but B, have a ball that is like good for everybody, which is basically impossible. Like they're trying to come up with a goal that's almost impossible, but they're trying to find like that small window that's really good for a lot of people. And in general, balls that are really good for a lot of people in history have been low RG, solid, symmetrical balls. Like they've been really popular. They're some of the most popular balls that have been ever made. Like thinking about the Game Breakers or the V2s or the Phase 2s or, a bunch of IQ Tours, but Venom Shark. Like there's just that they have a lot of use cases for a lot of people. Now, as bowling's developed, asymmetrical balls have done quite well also. But almost all the asymmetrical balls that have been great over time, there's been very few that have been super angular. Because in general, super angular, you kind of need more ball speed to use super angular balls because you think in your mind it should be good, but what ends up happening is if it's got an asymmetrical core and it's super angular, it ends up getting quite forward for slower speed players. So then, like, if you think that maybe 30% of all bowlers are slower speed, well, then that ball isn't that great for them. So, I mean, thinking back on all the great asymmetrical balls, they've basically all been smoother ones. Like the one is one of the ones that I think about. Like, I mean, for Storm, the X Factor was really good, but it wasn't around like the Virtual Gravity was around, or the Virtual Gravity Nano was around, or the Cell, or the Black Widow. Like, so I mean, it's just that's the problem. So then you end up quite often companies see, well, that's the most successful ball, so they end up with probably a couple too many in that range, and sometimes one of them hits and it's more popular and it'll replace one. But do you not think that if Motive could, they'd have another ball like the Venom Shark?
Yeah.
I mean, it's pretty good. Yeah. It's pretty popular. It's just not necessarily that easy to do that. So in the same way that I think asymmetrical urethane is the most pointless thing ever invented, I think that super low-end covers on asymmetrical balls would be a close second.
It is a tricky blend when you get really shiny, flippy ones that, covers and put a giant core in it. It every once in a while they hit, but there's more than a few misses there. So weak and strong and weak end up being a tough mistresses to get right.
And, yeah, I mean, like for example, I know that like the Tour Dynamics was a good example of that ball. They kind of put on like a medium sort of cover on it, not super strong, and they sort of made the weight block strong-ish but not super strong, and it kind of just had a bit of a row with itself. I felt like it never. Yes.
Yeah.
But then they've done the Ion Pro and they've made a couple of tweaks to the diff and they've put a stronger cover on it. And now, looks kind of good. Talking to Dick Allen, I never really swung around on PBA League shows. What was your experience like? I know it sucked because you lost, but
I mean, obviously we'd have liked it to be a little bit different. Cool environment as always. It has turned over a little bit, and so I think that keeps them going for the moving forward. I kind of like having a whole year of stuff leading up to it led to a pretty cool. You had way more camaraderie. You knew each other a little better. You could make more suggestions instead of being on TV and going, "Hey, do you have this ball? Do you like moving left?" You get those awkward. Man, that guy needs to do something, and nobody really knows what to say to him because they don't really know him. And so you got by a lot of that, and so there wasn't any of those types of things, guys. You could tell teams that had camaraderie and cohesion, and teams that didn't. And there's still some pretty talented teams that could win despite not really getting along, and some teams didn't. But
I thought it was kind of interesting though. Of the 6 teams that were left, basically 3 of the teams only played with five bowlers, sort of thing. Like they very rarely made choices. Like your team was basically you had your 5 almost the whole time.
Yeah, because Sherman was injured. And I thought that was a
Exactly.
strength of ours because we weren't the strongest team.
But I was just about to go on to Rash's team was exactly the same. They basically only bowl with 5 bowlers the whole time because Thomas smashed his finger up.
Yeah.
Timmy's team, very rarely did they have to make a decision over who sat out every week because they never had 5 guys fit.
Yeah, Wes was out a lot.
Wes was out. Smallwood got hurt. I think Kyle got hurt at the TOC, and they got Eric Jones into bowl.
They had more subs than they had 6 guys.
Yeah. So that was kind of interesting. The only team that it felt like almost balanced their 6 players when I was watching was Baker's team.
Yeah.
Like you had no idea who was going to line up for their team. I saw Jesper sit out one time. Nick Pate was out, Dick was out. It kind of like their whole team was much more using the whole roster.
And they didn't have a particularly great year. I do think that sometimes the 6 guys, especially if your manager's not there, makes because you only get 4 shots of warm up, maybe 6, and you're like,
yeah. I mean, that was the other part of it that I was wondering. Like looking at it as a going forward. I don't know. Like watching it from the sideline, it was just a little tough for me watching someone like Sam Cooley fly all the way over from Australia to end up not bowling. Like he ended up bowling the second match, I guess, a couple of shots, but like he didn't really bowl. Darren Tang didn't bowl at all. Richie said they should have won. His strike percentage was bad. Yeah, I mean, it's difficult. I mean, Belmo's team should have won. Like everybody on their team struck both shots almost except Belmo.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, a Baker is almost always going to come down to one guy. Like, it just is. Like, I mean, the lanes were pretty easy. Like, looking at it from the outside, I mean, obviously not being there, but I didn't feel like hitting the pocket was like particularly difficult. I think most of the issues on the right lane came from the fact that you didn't want to ring 10. Because it was super easy to get the ball too far down the lane on that right lane. That's normal. I thought that lane 2 or the left lane, I thought that actually held up and played a little better than normal.
A little better than it has in previous years. He did put a little head run on. He used 2 machines this year. And so he put a little head run on, short one, and then ran over the top. And that left lane didn't blow up in the front like it has. And so there was way more guys that could hook it on both lanes and still didn't lose one of the 2, and way less urethane on the right side.
Yeah.
It got to it a little easier, and really guys couldn't get urethane to pick up enough because it wasn't hooking as much in the front to get started.
I mean, to be fair, my team, it wasn't my team when they won, but it is my team now. So whatever. That when they won, they were all using purple hammers, which is obviously a lot stronger. And purple hammers and pitch blacks are a lot stronger than the red balls and the black ones now. So yeah, just something a little difficult.
Yeah, Richie can come on when he wants. As a matter of fact, he's got an invite right now, but he hasn't checked his cell phone. So,
as a player manager, I guess it is a difficult call to take yourself out of the lineup. But that's the thing. I don't necessarily know that he needed to take himself out of the lineup. I just think he needed to throw better shots. Like,
yeah, he's never going to be out of the lineup because there's at no point where he's not one of the top probably 3 players on his team.
yeah.
But he is a field player. The 10 minutes between shots is not really his friend. His ball does see friction more than some of the other guys because of his rep rate and speed. And so, he's still the best player of this generation. I don't think there's hardly ever a reason for him not to be in the lineup from that standpoint. Now, at times when Carolyn Dell weren't there, I kind of became a de facto manager, but we had a situation too where Marshall wasn't going to be out of the lineup, Packy wasn't going to be out of the lineup, but most of the time BJ wasn't either. And so it was myself and it was Richie Teese, and then at the end it was Cortez. And I called my own number to set a couple of times because my look wasn't fantastic on the fresh or whatever it was. And it's trickier when you're a manager and you're still as good as Jason is, because then your ego, you're in a different place, I think.
Yeah. I mean, historically he hasn't performed very well in the 10th frame in the team event. That's just the fact. I mean, he can get upset with me, but that's just the way it's been. Like, he's a great bowler, but I don't always think, like, Wes Millott isn't the best bowler on his team. Like, but he's been the best anchorman on that team. Like, he's never been the best bowler on that team when they've been winning. Right. But he's always bowled anchor. Like,
the day when he would have been the best bowlers, was 10 years ago. And he was for a long time.
Oh boy. Oh boy. I feel like we need Stone Cold's walk-on music for this.
Dun, 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 dun. Dun, 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 dun.
Yeah, the broken glass.
Please welcome to the show, everyone's THB, Richard Allen.
What's up, gentlemen?
How we doing, Richard?
Good. Hanging out. Was gonna go see my mom today and hang out up at the bowl, and I left my car keys in Sarah's car, and my other keys are in my car. So I'm stuck at the house.
I tried that Friday too, turns out. Ryan grabbed some balls out of the back of the back of my car and headed to Wichita. And after he grabbed them, he went and put that set of keys in his pocket, which is the only set of keys I have to that car since we just got it a little bit ago. So, hour and a half into his drive, I went to pack up and go and realized I didn't have a way to get into my car. So we got to turn around. We both got to drive an extra hour and a half.
Always fun.
Yeah, good times. Good times.
Nice. Like,
little too far to take an Uber to Waxahachie, so
So hey, speaking of the league, right?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I like. Hi, Denise Roth. How are you? I don't know if you're watching or not, but if somebody knows her, say hi to her. I tried to talk her into coming. I was going to stop and have dinner with her on the way up to Maine, but I was like, yeah, I'll see you in Jersey. And she's like, well, I live in Syracuse now. And I was like, crap. So I didn't have time to go. But this lady was nice enough to send me a couple of things. This is not mine. This is a mold of Mark Roth's thumb. This is his thumb mold.
That's. Oh, wow.
Mark Roth PBA card. Nice.
That's one of the 28 of those that he got?
Bro.
Yeah. That's awesome.
1980.
1980.
Yeah, the year he made the 710. His only title in 80 was the RPI.
What?
Go look it up.
The RPI.
That's what I said.
But he made the All-American team.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that was from the previous year's accomplishments.
I was about to say, if it was because of the 710, then my man Anthony Knight got fucked. Like retroactive that shit.
Yep. Yeah, I don't. His 1980 year was weird. I went and looked it up, and it was definitely pretty weird.
2 years removed from winning 8 times in the same year.
Yeah. So, but yeah, how was the league? Man, that league was fun, dude. I thought we were gonna win. I did. I feel like I let our team down. Mark put me in that 4-9 hole, and I don't know if I'd ever bowled there on that team, like on the show, like with you or with I was either 5 or 1 or 2 or I don't ever remember being 4.
Doherty's been locked into the 4-9 spot forever, and he showed up this year. And I mean, if we're calling a spade, it's that was not his best look.
We all have our moments.
Yeah, I mean, it's happened to everybody, but really, he's bowled really well every year. So he just bowls 4-9. He gives you 3 or more strikes every time, and this year he did not.
Yeah. Yeah, I even told Mark, I was like, man, I don't mind being there, but man, I don't feel like my carry percentage is all that great to be in the 4-9 hole. And man, I was a little over anxious. I didn't feel like I bowled bad. I felt like the lanes were fine, but man, I feel like I let our team down. I feel like if I get that strike in the 9th and set Jesper up to have a chance, I feel like we pull that match out and we get hot.
Yeah, I like I say that the theories behind Baker are wild. Like wild.
Everybody has one, and they all are great when you win, and they're all trash when you lose.
I would absolutely love to sit with a stats guy over it. Because to me, right, putting one of you guys who strikes the most first is the stupidest idea in the world, right? Everybody's gonna get off to a good start. Yeah, but you immediately waste a fucking double. Like to me, it's just like, and then if your anchor doesn't strike, that means that guy can't throw a double. So to me, I kind of always look at the guy who's got a decent look, but kind of how you were, where you were going to hit the pocket, you probably weren't going to open.
Automatic 1-6.
Sort of strike percentage. To me, that's an ideal leadoff guy, because if they strike, it's a bonus. But that's one of the guys that you're least likely to think is going to strike. He's fucking up one less double per game.
I know, he's a strike derby champion. He's in the strike derby for us.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh man, it was fun though. I mean, his the way he sets it up sometimes cracks me up. It's wild. So
I think he was sort of he was sort of like driving that bus towards Chris for that though. He said Vi was in charge. So
yeah. I mean, as soon as it wrapped around, I mean, you figure Jesper strikes, he strikes. I mean, I feel like it should have been me, Frankie, and Tom and Chris and Jesper, but I don't know.
I think this is quite funny. Just he says ball idea, velocity core, which is phase, with AI cause Kool-Aid, which made me laugh a little bit. Rat with R2X, Pearl finished at 500, could be pretty over under. Yeah, could be. That was the overseas phase, original overseas phase. That ball, to quote Sloan, that ball fucked. That ball was good. It came back from everywhere. So it didn't have AI on it, but it did come back from places that I enjoyed. So
man, my man, we were bowling the regional, and I was sitting on the chair, and you could sit like 2 people on it. And I guess Dan thought that I was hogging the seat. He called me fat butt.
it's a judgy group, you know, when you get to them senior citizens. It's
Richie, you've got to the PBA put out the social media cards for all the people who made the what are we calling it? The LBC thing. You know, they got the LBC shootout coming up.
Yeah.
Clifton says you'll always be an MVP. I want you to go through it like I did. Check out some of they have a favorite bowler, and it's like in history or currently. Now, there is a gentleman here who qualified in the senior division, Bill Froberg. Who is your favorite bowler all time? All time, Norm Duke. Today. Go ahead, take a guess. Who's his favorite bowler today? This, honestly,
Kyle Troop.
I screenshot this.
Kyle Troop.
Daria Payak.
Ooh.
That's no shade at Daria. I'm just saying that's quite a wild change.
It's my daughter's favorite kid. That's my daughter's favorite bowler, Daria.
Yeah, I'm just saying
But,
to go
yeah,
from
Norm Duke
to Daria.
Yeah.
That's quite the turnaround. I was a little concerned how many people had Robert Smith as their favorite bowler. I was surprised, maybe not concerned, surprised. Both Bug Kroll and Chris Pather listed Robert Smith as their all-time favorite bowler.
I got a question about Robert Smith for you.
Yeah.
Did he ever bowl in the league? Or was he done before then?
No, he didn't bowl in the league.
Never bowled in the league.
Man, I didn't think so. I didn't know if he bowled that first year or not. I was thinking about it the other day. I was like, I don't think he ever did.
All right, Richie, you need to shut the fuck up now. This guy's paid $50.
Yeah, you're good. I'll get a drink.
VD, thanks for the super chat, my man. CB, I bowled my first tournament at PBA 50 this weekend at Waxahachie. I wanted to introduce myself, but wasn't sure. Could have any time. Never a problem. To anyone who says bowling is easy, I can say PBA is no joke. Getting my doctorate was easy, but not the PBA.
I think that we've all bowled in a bowling center that's left us feeling that way.
Waxahachie on a shortish pattern left all they were not fun.
For me personally, I feel that way every week that I bowl anywhere near EJ. Because for me, bowling at times, it's never really super hard. But averaging 230 for a tournament, like he averaged 230 for the entire PBA season. And I've probably done it like 15 times in my whole career. Averaged 230 for a whole tournament. My man did it for a season. Like,
it's pretty wild.
So bowling is always relative. Like, so when I go and bowl local tournaments and me and Nathan bowl, for me and Nathan, it's fairly easy bowling against the other guys, especially when they're a little harder, you know, because we're better at shooting spares than them and we leave more things that we can make than they do. So, but then I stand there and I go, I averaged 217. How many would EJ have beat me by on this? And then I think, did I really bowl that well, or did I just pick the right tournament to enter? And that's how I feel like this guy feels. Like, you probably didn't bowl that bad. And if you'd have bowled by yourself without, you know, the really good guys bowling, you would feel like you'd had a good day. And I find that that's the hardest thing with bowling, to decipher whether I bowled well or I was just way out of my fucking depth. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I mean, like for me, I travel around with Dom. Dom's better than I am. So like, if I go out and I bowl and I beat Dom, and like Dom's not like suicidal, I'm like, I probably bowled pretty good today. Like, you know, and then I look and like I'm 100 behind the lead, and I'm like, that's kind of a problem. If I feel like I bowled pretty well and I'm 100 back. So I just think that bowling is, there's always somebody better than you unless you're called Simo or EJ. So yeah, I don't know whether that should make you more miserable or less miserable.
No, I came to that realization a long ass time ago.
It just makes
Like I there was a time, I don't know, maybe about 15, 16 years ago, I was like, you know what? I can be the best bowler in the world for exactly about 6 days.
yeah,
And that's all I need. That's all I need. And I'm fine with that. And when I do that and I accomplish that, there's that. And it's tough to maintain. Like those guys, Chris, EJ, the guys that did that for years. Like, I mean, I looked up to it. It's one of the most spectacular things I've got to witness. And just to be in the realm of being able to do that for 6 or 7 days, maybe 2 weeks in a row, feel like holy shit, this is where I want to be. I want to get used to this, and it's so hard to maintain.
Yeah, that's
because then you turn around, and you go 100 under one tournament, and you're like, I'm the same guy who just averaged 239, waxed the field, led every round, won the show, did the whole thing, never missed a spare. And now I'm back to this guy who's like, I need to go bowl some regionals and work on some things.
Yeah, 3 days later they can strip it all away from you.
Yeah.
I mean, it's exactly the point. People say to me, why don't you and Chris vlog? And I said, because it would be the most negative experience of anybody's life. And I was like, I said, and I 100% don't mean this in any kind of way, but like, Chris is obviously the person that people want to watch on our channel. Like, you know, like the search results, everybody searches for Chris, right? But like, Chris has 19 titles and a triple crown, right? Darren and Brad and Kyle do a fantastic job, but people feel like they're along for the journey and they can relate to them. Which viewer can relate to a guy who's been the best bowler in the world for like 5 years straight? Like, how? That's not relatable. The only time Chris is going to get happy is if he makes the show for the Masters. Like, you know, oh, I made the show. Like, I'm super pumped. I made the show. I made the show like, I don't know, 8 times, whatever. And like Darren and Brad and Kyle, they're like super pumped. And you like, and you watch it and you're just like, and you feel like you're along the ride. Chris goes, yeah, I made the show. Done this 117 times.
Well,
like,
I have moved my standards back a little bit.
I get you have.
Excited again.
But the point is you're still not going to be like super like excited, like, oh my God, this is amazing. I've made the show. Let's go. Like,
yeah,
it's just not relatable because you're like so much better than like everybody but like 20 people in history have ever been, that it's kind of like, ugh. So all you end up getting is the opposite of watching a guy get super livid, which I admit could be quite good viewing. It just isn't necessarily good for Chris's mental health that everybody's tuning in to watch the train come off the tracks every week. Like, that isn't necessarily like, you know, you can imagine it like, you know, behind the scenes as Chris kicks a chair and Linda walks out the building or whatever. Like,
I don't have to imagine it. I've seen it 100 times.
100 strong.
oh God! And that was when he was bowling well.
Oh man. Oh.
So yeah. So BB, don't give yourself such a hard time. Like, Waxahachie is a pretty challenging place to cut your teeth. To bowl the first tournament. I think that bowling PBA tournaments on a short pattern for a person who hasn't really bowled professional tournaments is by far the worst choice you could imagine, because for me, whenever we bowl sport league and we bowl on a short pattern, the guys who understand how to bowl on a short pattern strike a lot, and the guys who don't strike at all. Like when we bowl on an easy cheater, like the difference between the guy who comes last and the guy who comes like 10th is the biggest of any tournament we bowl. Because if you get tight and you can't throw it to the right, you can't shoot 180.
Yeah.
And the other guys who are like loosey-goosey, it looks like they're never going to shoot less than 260. So, like, yeah. Short patterns aren't the ones that I ever want to... I'd never recommend for people to do that. Like,
now it's 37 feet and a 20-plus-year-old HPL surface, so everything left of you hooked. The gutter didn't. You kind of had to feed it in there. You could urethane it a little bit or really spin it through there. And everything in the middle, it was still 37 feet in the middle, and then it was about 43 feet in that other little slot where urethane was. Good times.
Is that, you said that was a league? Is that a sport league?
No. I'm just saying when we bowl sport league. No,
No.
Chris was bowling.
No, that was the
PBA
senior,
50,
the PBA 50 RPI qualifier. We
Oh,
bowled on the Bat Dan pattern.
sounds like fun, actually.
It was bat, but it was Bat Dan. Well, it would have been if it wasn't symmetrical. Somehow on a 25-year-old surface and 37 feet, we thought that was a good idea.
Yeah.
Not every left-hander made the finals, it turns out, or made cut. But I figured it made up for it because one of the guys that was 60 was throwing a backup ball, and he did cash. So, figured it's that kind of.
For my
But
fourth
Chris
step,
Warren didn't win, so
Oh, sorry.
Shocker.
yeah. Keith Harris, for my fourth step in 5 approach, I was heel toe. Now I'm toe heel. Any other advice? I noticed deceleration of the foul line. Thanks, Bish. 490 RPM, 16 miles an hour, which probably puts you in the 18 and a half. You're a little rev dominant.
Jealous.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of toe heel at any point before your slide.
I mean, maybe the first step, but outside of that, just the sort of like, yeah, but like, I don't know how you don't fall over.
Well, when you go toe heel, the thing is you get way more forward to be on your toes. Generally, you watch somebody like Kyle Troop who really exaggerates the heel toe part to stay centered over his feet, and
but his rev rate's still 490. Can you imagine what his rev rate would be like if he used his right foot? Because effectively, if you go toe heel, you can't push off. Like, you don't have that.
Yeah, that would be the deceleration part you're talking about because you're actually almost leaning back. I'm not.
Just go back to heel to toe.
I would. I mean, I'm very much. Like in golf, they say swing your own swing. Like, they're like, don't get super like jacked about all of this stuff. I'm a little bit like that with bowling. Like, if you're having success doing it, like, knock yourself out. I wouldn't necessarily recommend that. Like, I haven't necessarily slow-mode everybody, but I don't think I've ever seen anybody do that who was a power player. So, yeah.
I mean, I would assume that most people just take the strategy of they just kind of plod along until they don't see any more improvement, right? I mean, like once you find something and it just becomes like you're doing the heel toe thing and you're like, I don't like it. And you went to toe to heel and you start liking it, you start scoring well, and then you go bowl some other stuff. Like when you get exposed is when you should probably try to start worrying about that stuff, right?
Yeah. I mean, I love how much more technology there is in golf than bowling. It's like, so they have this swing machine. We're just talking about swing your own swing, right? And what it does is like you put the club in it, and then you just basically let the swing machine manipulate your arms, and it'll do anybody's swing, right?
It's like a throwbot.
Kinda, but you're attached to it.
Yeah.
So they had Bryson DeChambeau, and they put him in the Rory McIlroy swing, and he's just like, how does he do that? Because it's like he goes so low. And I mean, it probably helps that Bryson's 6 inches taller than Rory or whatever, but he just goes, ow.
Yeah, I
And
saw something.
it'd be like the three of us having our arm manipulated like we were EJ.
Yeah.
It would just be like, ooh.
Or
Yeah,
getting Imo gets with a step to go.
I saw a regular person. They put a regular person in that same Rory thing.
Yeah.
And oh man, it was brutal. Thought the guy was going to hurt himself.
But it's like, to me, that technology is so cool, like that they've got something like that. And could you just imagine your arm being manipulated like your EJ, so it comes down on the inside, and then you just like, oh my god, it feels like my elbow is going to rip off.
Yeah. I wouldn't mind feeling some other people's feels sometimes. See what it feels like.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that there's going to be a lot of people who'd be signing up for, hey, let's feel what Stu feels, or Frankie, or Dick. I don't think there'd be a lot of people who'd be like, yeah, let's program in Nathan. Let's see what that feels like. Yeah, I you know what I mean? I think there'd be a few Chris Prathers.
I think
John
sometimes
Barrett.
it'd be good to put the guys in who are struggling and go, okay, well, that's way closer to what I feel like. Okay, well, I just need to really stop doing that. Okay.
Well, what you should
start
do,
punching in all the guys that feel bad all of a sudden.
Like, let's just go, okay, who's 50th? Let me throw, ooh. Oh, hey, that feels kind of normal.
that feels comfy.
Yeah. Now let me put in number 5.
Well, they'd probably be left-handed.
I can't even get to that spot. Oh, yeah.
I just
Cliff Barnes says I get happier when somebody else pays for dinner. Can you imagine how much happier I would be if it was actually Cliff? I mean, actually, it has been Cliff before, but our guys say it's a grind, but no, it's pulverized. Seriously, for my paycheck to depend on winning, no way. Seriously, I'm humbled. So much respect. It's nice of you to say, and it's sometimes great to hear.
He said, no, it was bad, but everyone was so encouraging. Well, yeah, they want you to come back.
I would pick an easier pattern. Just pick one of the 40 medium 42s or whatever, something that's closer to what you bowl on the rest of the time. Because house patterns are 42. You don't want to pick a 48-foot, one of the outliers, and unless you're good at playing the gutter, I would stay away from the 35s as you're kind of getting your feet wet. And then expose yourself to some of those things that, like you said, it's hard to recreate those short patterns anywhere else.
How often do you guys focus on the weakest parts of your game?
Every
old
session.
Bowlers, that's one of our main weaknesses, that we do focus on what we can't do. I think that actually the best advice that I could give someone who was like a one-hander who was coming up is understanding what your weaknesses are is a really big strength. So not getting yourself in a spot that you're doing something you're not very good at, I think, is quite a good skill set. Like, understand what you're good at and try and manipulate how you're going to play the lane based on your skill set, rather than, like, everybody says, oh, look what the field's doing.
That one right there. That's the biggest trap I've ever fallen into on tour right there. You see it. You see the shape. You're bowling with 3 guys who have 460 rev rate and they're 12 left of you. And everybody's banging, hey, just throw a little slower and make it hook more. I mean, the shape's right there. Yeah, well, like every time you throw it like that, you throwing it like the weakest part of your game against the guys that are the best in the world. Guess what's going to happen? You're going to plummet. You're going to fall down the leaderboard every time because you can't keep up doing your weakest thing that you're trying to practice at against the guys who do it naturally. You better find a way to play the lanes like you know how to play them, like Nathan did at Tour Trials.
Yeah.
And get through it.
I was interested to hear your answer because you've been around, basically forever as well. And I think there's two general ways to approach it. You can figure out how to do a version of what everyone does, which that was kind of my approach for a long time. And then the top end got too far away, like you're talking about. When it was 460 and it was 475 and it was Tommy and there was only 10 or 15, I could do that. I could throw it slow and create that shape. And then when Tommy became the middle and it went to 500 and 520 and another mile per hour faster, that throwing it slow thing to create it didn't work anymore. And it's been the hardest part for me is just do what I can do versus trying to chase what the guys being most successful are doing.
There's coming to a point. I said a few years ago to a couple people. I don't know who listens to me at all, but whatever. I mean, I've been saying it for a while that the like you said, Tommy getting to the middle, like Tommy's starting to get even a little lower below average sometimes. Like when it gets to match play time or you get later in the tournament, all of a sudden he's down on the bottom rung. So when you get all the two-handers involved, so now there's going to be a time where like all these guys, when they can't throw urethane, to the right, they all throw it so much, they all hook it so much, they all rotate it so much. There's going to be a time where like they're all just going to start at 20. That's fine. That's fine because if you can find anything at 12 with resin, with something else, surface, play the front like you used to do on some of those shows where you trick it out to the right and everybody's moving to the left. There's coming a time where like you're going to have 12 or 13 boards to the front to work with sometimes as a low rev, like medium player guy. Now, especially with even more players on the left on tour next year, man, if you could find a spot on the lane where guys aren't throwing urethane, it's a little closer to the right, I mean, close to the friction. Let all those guys that are already left, they're just doing what we used to do against each other from 12, and then the guys who get left of that were the big men on top of the field, and they're out. Now that same thing is applying, but it's 10 boards further left on the lane to the front.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And,
so
and I don't think that's
if you can play right, man. If you can play right, you got all sorts of stuff to the front and the middle part of the lane. If you can control the back.
I'm fascinated by this though, but like, do you think that the field, the lane guy, or the lane surface has had more to do with that being more tricky to be able to achieve?
I mean, probably the lane guy.
Because I think that oiling lanes now is the hardest it's ever been, because the lane surfaces the track is so worn in everywhere, and the rev rates are so high. Anytime he puts any friction to the right, the guys just use urethane. So then that takes away from, like, if everybody used reactive, it'd almost be like it would blend more, because the guys who would have to use reactive would be further left and it wouldn't burn the fronts up as much. So I just find it kind of fascinating. Like, I think it's very difficult to achieve what we're trying to do, because the front part of the lane is so messed up.
Right. And to be honest, we're at a point now. Remember Chris, you were there, Stu, you weren't. The first year, like Pelon won the first event of the year, whatever, in Peoria. And they were like Steve Wilson came out the gate, gutter ball, first shot of the year on TV, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They were
harder than hard.
Right. I think we're at a point in professional bowling where we've got enough people who want to go out there and bowl on tour. We've got enough ridiculousness with what the lanes and everything are doing. You know what? We've got this big two-handed debate, two-handers, one-handers, rev rate, this, that. You know what? Go back to it. Go back to it. Let's drop the averages significantly. Let's make everybody shoot spares. Let's make everybody play. Let's run them impossible for 6 weeks before, not impossible, but to where you're like, oh my God, they're really hard. This is like what they were like that one year when you started 2001, 2002 season, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And they ended up getting away from that in the second half of the year after the beginning of the year because they were too hard.
Well, the shows weren't interesting, and you had non-bowlers running the tour.
Right. Well, now we're claiming these guys are the best in the world. You want to have this huge debate? Let's do it. Run them that way. You want a 230 average on tour? Man, that's impressive. That's crazy, though. That's wild. You know what? Let's regulate it. Let's do something about it. You could end all the debate right now about what's better, two-handed or one-handed. You take the professional players and you put them on the tightest fairways with the thickest roughs, with the slickest greens, and you let them have at it. And let's see who comes out on top at the end of the year.
I personally don't think that they have enough understanding of how the lane would break down. I don't think it's as easy as just making them hard.
They could easily do this. They could tell us what they're running. They could tell us they don't have to tell us what they're running. They could go back to that. And all of a sudden we come out one week and there's 15 mils on the lane and it's 52 feet long. Who cares what we bowl on? They want to see who's the best. People want to see who's the best. Somebody's got to figure it out, right? Let's see if you can figure it out all the time.
Urethane is boring on TV.
Rev rates won't allow patterns to stamp. Well, that's always been the case. I mean, it's not rev rate. Just if you get guys that are good at bowling, they can start really hard and get better. They used to start really hard all the time, and that's why they had you practice for an hour before the TV show because they didn't want the TV show to suck, so you practiced on them. Now they're easier when you start, so they minimize practice so you don't make them hard. So now the only time they get easy on TV is the US Open where they're already hard and nobody wants to look like an idiot.
Yeah.
And so then they beat them up and then the scores are actually decent.
The bravest, best bowlers never look like idiots.
Yeah.
I mean, what when you won the US Open, what'd you average that year?
212 or 214.
I mean, why don't we just run them like that every week? The
suicide rate on tour would go up significantly.
The what?
But you know what? That's fine because they got tour trials and they would get replaced the next year anyways.
Yeah.
They get replaced with better bowlers.
And this would be what you'd run into a little bit. I do think variety-wise,
I actually don't understand
how much harder they used to be at the beginning of the day.
Mm-hmm. I remember watching Robert and Devaney go minus 120 the first 4 or 5, and it's the same boat. You're plus 60 or 70 grinding it out, and then all of a sudden those same guys, Devaney and Robert, are plus 110 later on. After they got a little wide open and they bombed them, and you're still right there too as you adjusted along with it. I mean, I remember those days.
Yeah, I'm going to get a little off topic, and I'm going to let Stu go about this one for a second.
Oh boy,
our PWBA
get the fuck out of here! I'm saying this fucking bullshit. Fuck all of you. No, they don't bowl on harder patterns than we do. Get the fuck out of here. God, I'm so sick of this fucking narrative. Like, I get it. Like, you guys all want to put together that the women score less because what they bowl on is harder. It fucking isn't. They fucking average less at the Lucy every year. We bowl on the same pattern. Like, just get out of here. Fucking nonsense.
How about Jonesboro?
Yeah, go.
I hate that. I hate that. That place leaves me feeling really bad every time I bowl there.
It's hard. Yeah. Jonesboro, the seniors bowl, the ladies bowl.
Yeah, it works out.
And even was the cut. A couple of people bowled pretty good on both tours. And then the kids bowled, and I went back and watched Ryan, and Ryan threw like 5 different balls because he couldn't carry, and basically ended up shooting the same score as the leaders for both the seniors and the women, and he was about 8th or 10th, and he's like, they didn't look hard when the regular tour bowled. They looked really hard when the women and the seniors bowled on them.
Yeah, I just the ladies, good bowlers. Like, they're good bowlers. I just think that it's so disrespectful, like talking like, yeah, it's just.
How would Nathan do on the ladies tour?
I think he'd win every week. Like, I watch Nathan bowl all the time. Nathan's main problem is he doesn't have enough rev rate, and the guys fuck the lanes up for him.
I wouldn't mind getting left of the field.
Yeah. Every time we bowl a local
You just turn 50, bro.
like, he wins. Like, I have this debate a lot, and I use Nathan just because Nathan is like, when you look at his results on the men's tour, he gets so disrespected because he doesn't fit to what people need to do. Nathan's been a really good bowler for a long time. He's won 25 regional titles. Like, he's won plenty of stuff in Texas where there's a lot of good bowlers, but he doesn't have enough rev rate to bowl against those guys. Yeah, he would be fine. Like,
Casey Manning says, Chris hopped in the past with a TV show significantly easier than what you bowled on during all week. I'm probably the wrong guy to ask about that because they felt like they were pretty much harder for me on TV a lot.
But this is an interesting point because I personally believe that the people who deal with TV should just deal with the TV. I don't think it should have anything to do with the format that we bowl every week. I think that we should just bowl. And then when it gets to the TV show, especially when it's not a major, it just is what it is. Like, if they want to make them easier, they make them easier. Whatever. Like, but the rest of the week, don't make them easier for the entire week where everybody makes their money just so they're going to be easier on TV. Just fucking make them easier on TV and be done with it. Like, how many times are they never even close?
You know how they used to do the insurance thing for the 300 game on TV, like, you know, all the money and whatnot?
Yeah.
I always thought they should have, like, put in heavier pins, like walled them up. Like, remember when they used to bowl in like the arenas? It always looked like the ball was gonna plaque 10 and everything just fell over. Like, I always felt like they should lower the flat gutters and like make them harder to get the corners out, and then put like $1 million bounty on the 710, and then just like soup up the backs. So that way, like, every split that's left on TV, it gets exciting because like the pins are flying out of the back and they have a chance to make it. See, that's some exciting TV. That's what I want to see. I want to see the bounty for the 710, and they're like trying to get guys to leave the 710. They wall them up, heavier pins, drop them. Man, that's what I want to see.
I also would love it if we could just bowl on new pins every week.
Used to.
I think that would have a big difference.
Yep.
Like, everybody's just like, oh, yeah, but then you'd give the advantage to the guys with higher rev rates. And I'm like, no. Or to use that guy who does all the English things. No. You've got to see that guy in the video. I posted one of them on my Facebook. He's like explaining to himself, who is making notes, why English is stupid. And he's like changing letters. And it's like, so this would be head. So this would now be whatever. And he's changing them, and the guy would go, so that would be this. And he just goes, no. Like, so that's how I feel about the heavier pin, the flatter pins, the newer pins. Like, Kyle Troop carries way more bullshit strikes than I carry. Like, strikes that just wouldn't be strikes. You know what I mean? Because he's got pins flying around. He creates so much more power. But those strikes just wouldn't strike if we were on new pins. I'm not really worried if my pocket goes down like 10%, because mine's already small, so I'm losing such a small amount. If like Belmo and Simo and troops percentage goes down 10%, they're losing a lot.
46.
4 years. Yeah, 4 years.
Doherty is the only one I know of right now that's going to be 50.
Oh, here's another one, Dick. This is another one of my favorites right now. I think you're a bit of a troll as well, so you might enjoy this, right?
Yeah.
What about strings?
Mm.
Because Brian O'Keefe, strings. I'm on team strings. I keep saying it every week. Every time EJ carries, like a stupid hit, I go, that wouldn't have carried on strings.
So I've only bowled on strings one time, and it was over at B3.
Yeah,
and
they don't fall over that easy.
That's all I did over there was strike.
There you go.
I was like, I might be a fan of these actually.
Like I say it all the time now. I don't understand why it's always like old white one-handers who are moaning the loudest about strings. I'm like, you're the ones who are going to benefit the most.
Well, yeah, I think some of the early data anyway was like 8% less on average, and they made it sound like, oh, it's only 8%. Like 8%'s a lot if you average 220.
All I know is the guy that I practice with.
So happy anymore.
The guy that I practice with over there claims to have a gigantic rev rate, like huge rev rate. Like he's called me out on the internet, Zeke. He's called me out on the internet 100 times about my rev rate. So he didn't throw one scout. Didn't throw one scout on the strings.
Oh, dear.
See, I was liking that. That.
Me too. I'm like, and every time I wrap a washout, I go, that wouldn't fucking happen on strings. See what I mean?
I bowled on once. I didn't shoot many spares that day, but I think I could be a fan.
I say it like this, right? Like all these people are like, I'll quit bowling. I'm like, I clearly won't. What else am I gonna do? What else am I doing? The only fear I have with strings is EJ's bowling set has now only got strings, so he's gonna be better on that than us as well.
Daniel, this is funny. Misread the title. Thought the secret to league was getting a Polish bowler.
Dara is Polish.
Yeah, there you go.
Everybody's favorite bowler.
Coley, yes, she's my favorite bowler. I'll let Linda know too. She'll be happy to know that.
I think Verity's my favorite female bowler.
What's that?
Verity's my favorite female bowler. She man.
Tina Williams is my favorite.
She hooks it nice.
I'm fine with Linda.
Yeah.
I doubled in the 10th last night in league to beat my wife. I thought we were both going to shoot 300. We both had the front nine. Last year we bowled on the same team. This year her uncles didn't want to bowl, and so she went and bowled with the ladies team in the league. I bowled with my buddy now, and she had the front nine the first game. I thought she was going to shoot 300. I had a little letdown after she didn't get it. I beat her 279, 278 the first game. We weren't bowling against her, but she shot 744. I needed double in a 10th the last game to snap her off in series, and still king of the house.
You put her in a place. I beat Tina by almost 200 last night. So
put her in her place. I took a break from doing the dishes, by the way.
Tina always tells me that financially we can't afford for her to be beating me on a regular basis.
Yeah. She goes on the ladies' tour. It's going to be a pay decrease significant.
So yeah, I think my favorite bowler to watch is Stephanie Zavala, because her rev rate is high, but it's not that high, and she can make the ball hook more than any person alive. Like if I could get her ball roll, I feel like I could almost hook it as much as EJ hooks it, because her ball hooks so much, and it's got like the perfect, like it picks up early and just continues. Don't know how she does it.
That Heather Grambly, is that right?
Hope Grambly.
Hope Grambly, yeah. She throws it good when she's not throwing urethane, and that the other young girl who won the Queens throws it good.
Jillian.
And Jillian, yeah, she throws it good. Man, I like watching those two too.
I was about to say, I did say that Nathan would win every tournament, and I have to take that back a little bit because that was a little over the top. Because I practiced with Jane Sin. She came down, and oh my god, she bowled for like an hour and a half and missed the pocket like 3 times. Now she was wearing out those 3 or 4 boards she was playing. It wasn't like one of my practice sessions where I was bowling like, first arrow or fifth arrow. But that groove between like 7 and 11, that was pretty dry by the time she'd finished. She wasn't missing many. She wasn't missing the pocket very often. And I sort of like, I felt a little sorry because the girl who was traveling around with her, Esther, is a pretty good bowler. But I said to Esther, I said, you need to get a third person to travel with you guys. And I said, why? And I said, well, because I travel with Dom and he bowls pretty good. And it's good to be with someone who's better than you because you can try and, you learn more stuff and you get. I said, but there's a time when it's a little bit over the top. It didn't help Bill O'Neill when he traveled with Belmo. When the guy you're bowling with bowls the last game of the tournament every week, not ideal. Not ideal.
You telling your wife to get back in the kitchen?
No, my kid's asking if she can get some lunch. I'm like, yeah, go ahead.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, this isn't serious.
The fact that dogs haven't barked during this yet is stunning.
That's
Chris Martin.
the girl that you practice with, dude. Is that the girl that won Player of the Year?
Oh yeah,
Jane Lee. Yeah.
Go ahead and answer this question because I got a question after you're done with Chris.
Okay.
I just turned 50 Sunday. Was thinking about doing PBA 50. I'm around 16 on the monitor, so 18 and a half. Around 325 revs. Do I have any chance to do good? Yeah, rev rate is not. It is not the same. It's like turning the clock back. So it's the 90s where 400. I'm towards the high end, probably in the top 5 of rev rate out there. And so most of the guys are in the same realm that you are, and so it's not so dictated by rev rate only, I don't believe, out there. And so plus there's a lot of checks that are all pretty good. It pays solid in the middle for sure. So I would encourage you to come out and give it a go.
So where is what's her name again?
Jane Sin. She's from Malaysia.
Malaysia. So do you think that with her being Player of the Year, do you think that you're going to see more girls from over there take it a little more seriously and see a bigger flux like you saw in the women's golf tour?
Well,
I would assume that after being Player of the Year in Malaysia, like they're going to funnel some money into bowling for females and try and get more of them over there, right?
The problem is Asia in general, most of their money came from government funding, and the government funding came from the Asian Games and everything else. And with the leadership we've had in World Bowling, that relationship between the World Games and bowling for the first time in forever doesn't exist. The Asian Games doesn't exist now. So bowling has lost a lot of funding in Asia because of that. Even like something like the SEA Games, which is the Southeast Asian Games, which was 100% always, bowling was always in it. It wasn't even a debate. They've been fighting they've been having very difficult fights to get it back in to be in the SEA Games this next time. So whereas this is cool and a lot of people were talking about it, Robert Dong was saying it was the talk of a lot of the Asian bowling community that Jane had won that big tournament and won Player of the Year. I don't think that's going to translate to them getting much money back, more so than like government funding comes more from like.
Yeah, that's where the Olympics thing is a huge deal. Like not so much for us, but for Asia and to a lesser extent Europe, but really Asia, bowling the Olympics, it was a huge, huge deal. You were talking about markets earlier. U.S. is about double every other market. Korea's second, Japan's third. And if you combine all of Europe, that becomes like around third, fourth. That's kind of where the market's set. So that Asian market is huge for bowling in general. And so roundaboutly, bowling would benefit from it. But
So any of the girls that tend to get invested now over there are simply probably just going to be closer to her, obviously, and just trying to do what she did on their own.
Yeah, I mean, I think that like they bowl as a
Grassroots.
team and they understand how much better she is than they are. So I don't know that it's necessarily going to be like, oh, Jane won. Oh yeah, I'll go.
well,
Like
if she
I
can
don't-
win, then
Yeah, I don't think it's necessarily like that. I think
Yeah.
if Esther had won twice, that might have been a trigger for some of the other girls to say, hey, but
Yeah.
Jane wins most of the other tournaments. And like, for example, on the men's tour, Timmy Tan bowled most of the season. He didn't make it. And then Rafiq, who is arguably the best bowler in Asia outside of Korea, certainly. He came over. He didn't make it through the tour trials either. So I think that I don't think that it's necessarily. I think that maybe actually in Asia you might see more of the other countries coming rather than Malaysia sending more, because the Asian culture, from my like just small interactions with it, it's more of like, oh, Singapore are doing well, we have to go and do that. Like say the Malaysians. So Malaysia and Singapore have been doing very well. So maybe like Korea will be more incentivized to send more because they don't want Malaysia or Singapore stealing the limelight from them. So I think that there might be more other Asian countries who come rather than more bowlers from, say, Malaysia.
well, it's like, when Mika won, it's like, well, if that guy can win, all of Europe now is going to come over because I mean, it's
I'm going to take credit for that. I made it through the tour trials when nobody else could. And then they're like, Jesus Christ, we beat that guy every week.
Oh,
They let him bowl on the national tour? Oh, definitely going.
I would have thought once Gu won at the World Series that maybe we'd had a few more Korean bowlers, but
And we've got decent money. I always find that like Choi watches like, the World Series. I mean, how is he not in for the next 4 World Series having watched that? He's like, all of them made it?
yeah.
Like, he's not even to pick on one guy. He's just like, everybody made it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not saying, one side's easier than the other, but I haven't seen a lot of left-handers learn how to throw a backup ball. Just saying.
that's
Dio
spot.
Bernardo's.
Dio, there's one. Okay. Yeah, you're right.
Here we go. Famous Texas bowlers are watching now, Dick said.
Oh my gosh.
Says, hi guys, hey Richie, Dino and I were just talking about the team challenge we bowled in Nolans with Ward McCovey
Mockbee.
Yeah.
and Todd Zenner. What a weekend. I haven't tuned in for a long time. Apologies. So there you go.
This
Yeah, that was a fun one,
Ward's
man.
my old roommate. By the way, Ward getting healthy, had a mild stroke here. So back at home, getting healed up.
Good.
Good wishes. But yeah, that's a dude that's real good.
Air lifting it at the showboat.
Oh yeah.
Man, that was fun.
10 p.m. Laughlin left their cap shooting 490. They were on fire. So
I do always giggle a little bit about, when people talk about like, oh, back in the day we'd throw it down the lane, right? And I don't know if people realize how much easier it is for two-handers to throw it down the lane than one-handers.
Hey, I'm telling you right now. My first experience at the high roller, they had these chairs at the showboat that sat right behind the approach. Like right in bowling one of the 2-game sweepers late at night. And I'm like on the low end and I move up a couple pairs and some dude comes down from the high end, comes next in, and I'm sitting in these chairs. And this guy, front of the bar return, almost on the other lane, might have been on the other line. I didn't really see where he was standing. This dude threw this ball further than I've ever seen a two-hander throw a ball, except for Oscar. I mean, it looked like Oscar's chair shot. I swear to God, it looked like Oscar's chair shot, except he threw it further. Navy reactive hammer. I mean, it landed on on 38, whatever you want to call it, 38, 39. It took like 2 bounces and it got to like 4 and it went dead sideways and Big Ford. And he came back and he sat in the other chair right next to me. And Rudy Rev said, I'm out of room. I don't know what to do. I'm out of room. And then he went up there and he threw that ball harder than anybody I've ever seen it throw a bowling ball. He almost made it. Pins went flying everywhere. But seriously, I've never seen even Gaines, John Gaines, and some of those guys. I mean, some of the loft those guys were doing at the 2-game sweepers. I mean, it was nothing I'd ever seen before at 18 years old. And some of these 2-handers, and some of them get close.
I mean, my favorite was the last time. I think it was 2008. So it was like the first time we bowled. I think it was 2008. It might have been the last time we bowled. But anyway, we were bowling the Open at Carolina, and Valenta had the entire 48 lane etiquette because nobody would bowl when he bowled because he was throwing it so far down the lane. Like he was throwing it over the pattern, and his ball, it was like a golf ball. It would land and spin, and he must have been throwing it as far as he could throw it because it felt like he was landing it in like a trash can down the lane. So you can only do that if you're throwing it as far as you possibly can every time. It wasn't like I'll just throw this one a little less. It was like full send every time. So he did it. And then I remember me and Dom watching Simo bowl like 3 years ago, maybe at the US Open. It was the year that the Spectre got banned, whichever year that was.
Yeah.
And he was throwing it like so far down the lane. And Dom's like, you got that one in your locker? As he bowled like 840. And Dom goes, he just bowled 840. He goes, I'm not sure with the same ball, his rev rate, and just having my thumb in it, I could bowl 640 on this. He goes, he bowled 840 and he left the 9-pin twice.
And I'm sure somebody on the internet told him he was doing it wrong.
Oh, yeah.
Learn how to bowl. Ball down. Idiot.
Why don't you throw a plastic? Because I just struck every shot for 3 games straight.
I just was not bowling my Thursday night mixed league. That's why.
Oh shit. Well,
CJ says, after you guys lost to Don Carter, Ward flat-footed threw a puma on top of the building.
He did.
That's like 35 feet up there.
Bro, sick. I remember winding up and just.
We at the last World Series in Wauwatosa. We thought somebody had thrown a ball on the top of the trucks because the way that Sully was laughing about it, and me and Dom literally for the next 24 hours were like hyperventilating, laughing about the fact that somebody had come out and just like thrown a ball on the top of the PBA trucks. No, they hadn't. They thrown it on top of the building.
Oh.
Yeah. I love bowling.
Yeah.
I love bowlers.
I love how angry it can make all of us. Like, it's my favorite thing in the whole world when the guy comes in from the streets, doesn't bowl, throwing a house ball down the middle, gets 9 and kicks something. I'm like, yes! Yes! Bowling owns you. You're going to be a bowler for the rest of your life. Yes! Well, it's been very entertaining, Dick. Thanks for joining us. Impromptu.
I thought he was messing around with me when he sent me a message. I was like, did he really send me a message?
Is this, did you get the wrong Allen? Because it was Patrick Allen's birthday yesterday. Do you know why I always remember PA's birthday? Because I had PA's gold card every time we went to Reno, the players card. And I could eat everywhere for free every time because PA never eats. So PA just gave it to me. So I needed to know that his birthday was 9/23, and I needed to sign big P, big little under lowercase a. Always a big A, but lowercase. Allen.
Yep.
So Shout out to my man PA. Many
Hell
a
yeah.
free meal on him in Reno. Never paid for food in Reno. One of my favorite ever. We were rooming with Lonnie. It was Doug Kent was with us, and Lonnie goes, "Hey PA, can you call down with your status and get me a microwave?" And PA used to hate the fact that Lonnie would like cook Indian food in the room or whatever. And Lonnie with his microwave or whatever.
No, Mom.
PA
No,
looks at him and goes,
no, Mom.
"Mop, I can eat at any restaurant in the entire place for free twice." He goes, "I can take 25 people with me to the buffet. Why the fuck would I need a microwave?" He goes, "You think that they're not going to see through that if I call down Patrick Allen, gold card, every point that I own, and ask for a microwave that they're not going to go, why'd you need a microwave?" He goes, "No, Lonnie, I'm not ordering a microwave."
Oh man.
And then he goes, well, Stu can eat for free. And he goes, "Stu can pull off being Patrick Allen. You can't." And then he left. And I don't know whether that's the most insulting thing anybody's ever said or not.
Might have been one of the nicest. Who knew?
Oh,
I love PA. He's my guy.
I miss him.
He's so good. Like,
Well, Richard, thanks for joining us. Anything you'd like to say?
Oh man, just a proud 25 PBA, 25-year PBA member. Excited about that. Holding it down. That's right. Always a fan. Always a fan. You guys and the PBA. So,
you always used to have that shirt that said "I bowled with the pros."
yeah, I got like 10 pictures of like standing outside the paddock taking pictures of you guys as you walk by too. I bowled like shit that week. I don't think I cashed. And no, man, I just want to thank Motive and Vice and thank you guys and the whole bowling community. Everybody's awesome. I like to thank Mike Nitre personally. Guy's been doing a lot to help me out lately. I can't thank him enough getting my game back on track. I feel like I'm going in the right direction after the last couple of years. Have been, he's got me doing some stuff off the lanes. I feel like I'm getting a little stronger, a little healthier. I'm excited to be bowling. That's all. So, yeah.
I like it. I like it. I know there's a lot of comments. We didn't get to everything. I know Buffalo have several of them that I thought were pretty funny, but we didn't get to with everything going on. So I appreciate it. We'll be back Thursday, and we'll be rehashing what Stu nicknamed the eventual champions of the PBA League when we started our draft recap. High rollers. As we have Andrew Anderson on.
Don't even remember. That's weird.
I do. If I can find the clip, we might even find it for you. But
was it complimentary?
No.
Okay. All right. Cool.
Love it.
Nope. So we'll come back with that as Andrew Anderson joins us off of his MVP performance and big ones.
Impressive all week.
It was
very good.
It was very, very good. And so that'll be coming Thursday. Thanks, Richie, showing up. Maybe we need to have you back on a little more often.
Anytime you guys want. I'm home in the daytime if I'm not practicing. House husband.
There you go.
All right. Take it easy.
All right. Thanks. In between now and then, hey, please support the sponsors, support us. Storm, Rotogrip, Niner Global, Coolwick, Bowler Smart, Fire Lake Bowling Center, Lightning Strikes, and Platinum Ford. Till next time, stay safe, stay healthy. God bless.
See you later.